We got a lot of territory to cover today. I'm sure glad to see you. And, you know, unlike my college students, you all actually talk to each other whether you know each other or not. And my college students are usually kind of in the frozen mode with their phones. So it's delightful to have to quiet a crowd here. If only my students would talk to each other. So it is quite a challenge. And I brought my umbrella in, so it will not rain as long as I'm carrying it, but I would like for it to be raining right at this moment over at my house. You know, when I pulled in here, I looked at their grass, and it's about as brown as mine is, so, you know, it's all over town, and hopefully things will improve sooner or later, but I haven't gone this long without a rain at the first of school, and I don't know when. So I'm watching like everybody else of a certain age. I look at the weather all the time. Surely that doesn't say something about my age, does it? All right, now, today we've got a good bit of interesting things to cover. At least I hope you will find them interesting. I appreciated all the comments I got last week, particularly about the additions of some African American history here, which I feel is really important and a subject that we just ignore sometimes. And so I'm determined to get all of these stories put back into the narrative of Nashville history. John Edgerton certainly made that one of his goals, and so I'm determined that this is going to be added to the story, because African Americans were here from the very first settlers, with the Robertson and Donaldson Party. So today I thought I would begin by bringing out another group that is not often mentioned in the history books, a cause near and dear to my heart, which is women's history. And I bet you all had the same kind of history books when you were in high school as I did, which you would have a woman or two. You'd have Clara Barton there wringing the blood out of her skirt, or you would have Betsy Ross doing a very womanly thing with a needle and thread. Whether that is accurate or not, we don't know. But you didn't really see a lot of women in your history books, because women were largely kind of left off of the ladder of success, moving onward and upward, and they were confined to a private, womanly sphere at home. But over the past 40 or 50 years, this has really changed dramatically, and I really give the civil rights movement full credit for empowering a lot of other groups to come forward and say, hey, we're not in the history books either. So I think that there was a domino effect after the 50s and certainly the 60s, and it continues today. So in Nashville, we had a lot of very active women, and they had a tremendous amount of influence in the community, and they were busy doing good things. There were a few working women here and there, but women, even if they were not employed, the women who were employed were the women who were largely cleaning your house or working in our mills. And by about 1900 or 1910, imagine this: Nashville was the leading flour-producing city, or one of the leading flour-producing cities in the United States. And yes, you see lovely wheat fields all around the state everywhere you drive, right? No, we grow very little wheat here. So how did this happen? Well, cut wheat grains from the Midwest was put on barges and with tugboats and other vessels, and brought to Nashville to be ground. We had all of these flour mills here, and they employed a lot of women. And so one of the nicknames that Nashville has is Powder City, and we look at that as thinking of the smokeless gunpowder that they were making out at the DuPont factory during World War I, but it also really was flour. We were grinding flour. Remember what they advertised on the Grand Ole Opry? Martha White's self-rising flour. And so that was a little touch that someone came up with here in Nashville, and Those mills produced a great deal of revenue as well as employment, but those women largely had way too much to do to have any kind of a voice, and so they really did depend on middle-class women who had a little more leisurely time to be their voices and be their activists. And certainly we did have several women in town who were looking out for the women who were, they were not treated exactly fairly in their workplace, even if they were doing the same work as men. This, at the turn of the century, this is also the time of this settlement house movement. Jane Addams had started Hull House in Chicago, outside of Chicago, in a factory district of the city, and other women around the country had said, yes, we need to create settlement houses. And what were the settlement houses to do? They were to get people settled in. And so we had a whole array of these. The Jewish community here founded the Bertha Fensterwald Center, which had immigrants coming here, particularly those waves of immigrants that began coming in the late 1890s. And they were coming from Eastern Europe or the Mediterranean areas or Russia, and they weren't as acculturized as the German Jews who had come down from Cincinnati. The Jews who came to Memphis and Nashville around 1900 were Jews from Russia and Eastern Europe, and they came generally to the port of New Orleans and then up the Mississippi River. And Memphis had an incredibly large Orthodox community. It is still incredibly large. The Baron Hirsch Synagogue, if you've ever been there, it's quite a lovely, lovely synagogue. And they had an older synagogue in this neighborhood, this Jewish neighborhood in Memphis called the Pinch. Here, our synagogues were largely Reform Jews. The Jews from Cincinnati had come in, were largely Reform Jews. But we had 2 or 3 synagogues by this time. But the Jewish women create this settlement house to help these settlers who don't speak English, who dress differently, who have different religious customs. And so this is a very big part of their social action, their social programs. Now, other denominations did this as well. Eventually, the Methodists will have St. Luke's Center. The Episcopalians will have, somebody's going to have to help me here. Or maybe St. Luke's is the Methodist. I'm speaking off the top of my head. St. Luke's is Episcopalian. Well, the Methodist is Bethlehem Center, and the Presbyterians had Martha O'Brien. So you have these women in these churches doing things for the community. You have a group of Methodist women and other denominations who will found a daycare center, the Fanny Battle Daycare Center. Fanny Battle had been a member of McKendree Methodist, and so you have these women doing these things. So a letter appears in the Nashville newspaper from a woman in Boston. She is a businesswoman, something that we don't have many of in Nashville, and she has written a letter to the editor because she had come to Nashville on business and she could not find a place suitable for a single woman to stay. So she writes this letter to the editor and says, you know, you Nashville ladies need to do something about this. You need to get a branch of the YWCA. So very quickly, there was a meeting called and they got to work. Women from all of the Protestant denominations pretty much participated in this. They created a board of lady managers. They rented some space. Not only did they provide a place for young women who were single to live, but they also provided services for women who were working downtown. You know, women's work changed dramatically with the invention of the typewriter, because heretofore a secretary was a man who was really sort of an apprentice for the job. He was working to get on that ladder and read the law or do something else. Well, now with the typewriter, which goes so much faster than the quill or and ink, the men's fingers don't quite fit on those keys, the QWERTY keyboard, quite as well as women, so secretary suddenly becomes a woman's job, and of course, there is a glass ceiling. The pay is considerably less, and you are not going to be riding up the ladder of success there. So you've got these women working in downtown Nashville in offices, but they don't really have a place to eat lunch necessarily, because all sorts of public facilities downtown were segregated for women, and so the YWCA provided lunches for these young women who worked downtown. They also, remember, this was a time when there was a rest room in a few places in town, and then if you were a very modern department store like Kastner Knott, you would eventually create a ladies' rest room, and it was a place where women, fatigued as we are so often, you know, such delicate creatures, that we have to go rest. So all of y'all will remember going into some of these restrooms in stores in downtown Nashville when Kane Sloan and Kastner Knott were down there, and they had sofas and all sorts of things. And so the YWCA provided that. So they did so well that they, of course, needed more room. They built this building you see here, a residential facility there. In 1908 and 9 and 10, they raised the money to build this. It was a magnificent structure. It was absolutely beautiful. And these country girls would come into town to take these jobs, and they would live here. Now, it wasn't just rural girls who needed to supplement the farm income. For example, there was a young woman in Jackson, Tennessee, who had decided that she was going to the Vanderbilt Law School. Now, did she have a law degree? No, she didn't, but she got accepted into the Vanderbilt Law School, one of the very earliest women in the Vanderbilt Law School. She worked at night over at the Andrew Jackson Hotel in the coffee shop. And who should she meet but an up-and-coming young politician from Smith County who was Albert Gore Sr. So Pauline Gore went to Vanderbilt Law School while he was going to the night law school here, because I think at the time he met her, he may have been he was maybe the director of the schools in Carthage or Smith County. So you've got women of that sort coming to Nashville as well. So the women in town are very active, doing all sorts of things to help other women. And the YWCA will be filled. It will be the center of a lot of activity during the World War I, women's activity supporting the war effort, and certainly during World War II. Now, we do have this courthouse down there. It no longer stands. This is the days when we had a separate courthouse and separate City Hall. This very lovely courthouse that you see on your left there was designed by William Strickland's son, and it was quite a lovely facility, but you know, when the New Deal came along and the Works Progress Administration came in, they built the current courthouse, which housed, even before the creation of Metro, it housed the city of Nashville's government in one end and the government of Davidson County in the other. So these buildings are going to be gone, and now we look at these buildings like the old City Hall and say, oh, what a tragedy that we lost that. Now, we got a lot of business people coming to town, and I know some of y'all have been watching Ken Burns on Channel 8, and so you've already heard some of this story. But C.A. Craig was from Columbia, and he was young and ambitious, and he came to town like a lot of young men did, looking for an opportunity to make some money. And he went to an auction on the courthouse square of an insurance company. I think the name of it originally was the Nashville Life and Sick Company. And so Sounds kind of depressing. So he raised the capital with some buddies of his and a generous investor. I mean, it was really almost like a startup project. And he bought this business, and it really took off. What they were selling, they changed the name to the Life and Accident Insurance Company, and they prospered very well. Of course, Nashville being this railroad hub, it was ideal for people to ride the train out to these rural parts of Tennessee and Kentucky and Alabama as well and sell insurance, really literally going door to door. And so they sold accident insurance if you got injured on your farm, and some of these insurance salespeople had local representatives in a community, particularly a county seat community. They had local representatives who would come around to your house once a week or twice a month, and you would give them your local dollar biweekly or weekly payment. I can remember quite well an insurance man in this little town we lived in Texas came every week to get 50 cents from my grandmother. And so, that was one of those things that really took off here. And so they come up with a lot of new ways to sell things, and they take advantage of the technology that is available. We already have radio stations in Tennessee. Down in Lawrenceburg, we had a gospel radio station. A gentleman in Lawrenceburg ran singing schools for gospel singers, and he had seen an opportunity to put gospel music on the radio. So in order to reach people who don't live in cities, who live in these rural areas, they came up with the idea. This was C.A. Craig Jr., the son of the founder of National Life, and he came up with the idea in the 20s of coming up with a radio show that would appeal to rural folks. Their motto was, "We Shield Millions, WSM." So they came up with a radio station, WSM Radio, and they sold lots of insurance to lots of rural folks who like to listen to the country music barn dance on Saturday night, the Grand Ole Opry. And they actually, in the beginning, played in the studios, which were in the National Life building, and then they moved 2 or 3 times before they settled on the Ryman Auditorium. I realize that some of you remember when Gaylord decided to build the new Opry House, and there was even a movement to just go ahead and tear the Ryman Auditorium down. And thanks to Fletch Koch and some folks who really thought this was a huge mistake, the Ryman was saved, but there were a lot of people in town who did not want to see that move out to Briley Parkway. So they are selling insurance and going great guns with it. So needless to say, somebody else is going to come along. Well, they came along before the radio station, certainly, but another group of investors, Andrew Burton, Guilford Dudley, some others invested in another insurance company, L&C, Life and Casualty Insurance Company, and they too got a radio station eventually, WLAC Radio, so they had their station downtown as well. So Nashville is really on the map. And Nashville's got a lot going on here, and there's a tremendous amount of diversity. But one of the things all these women have gotten interested in, it seems like, is the subject of drinking. And it is prohibition. Now, we look at prohibition as sort of whatever were they thinking, but what they were actually thinking was not exactly the purest of motives, because they saw these immigrants coming into our city around the turn of the century. And these immigrants, whether they were Irish, even though there had been Irish immigrants here since 1820, they were Irish and other European nationalities. they decided the immigrants were drinking too much. Now, they also thought that a lot of other people who had been here since the flatboats came up the Cumberland River had been drinking too much. But it was a cause that really caught on. And I've looked at these women's organizations a lot, and I've been really studying, what makes it easier for women to join something that is against something than to and I'm still thinking about this, so maybe y'all would like to have a long conversation with me about this, because, you do see how easy it is if you have a charismatic leader. And the Women's Christian Temperance Union indeed had a charismatic leader here in Tennessee. Her name was Selena Holman. She became president of this organization in the 1890s. She knew how to mobilize women. She was the wife of a doctor from Fayetteville, Tennessee. She had 8 children at home, but she had plenty of domestic help, and she traveled all over the state. And suddenly, the Women's Christian Temperance Union has local unions all over the state of Tennessee. At one time, there were over 200 individual temperance unions in Tennessee. When you think about it, and think about little tiny towns in Tennessee, Greenbrier, for example, or Portland, or Westmoreland in Sumner County, and even they had a union. And one reason I think that it was acceptable for women to do this to some degree was because most ministers did not oppose women doing something about alcohol. Most ministers didn't, at least Protestant ministers, with the big exception of David Lipscomb. David Lipscomb did not think that Mrs. Holman should be out in public doing much of anything, and she carried on a 15 or 20-year correspondence with him about the role of women, not only in the church, but in society. And it's a fascinating debate. Talk about easy research. It's week after week after week in the Gospel Advocate. And Mrs. Holman would write a letter to the Gospel Advocate. The editor, David Lipscomb, would respond, because he didn't always respond to the letters to the editors, but this was an opportunity to set all the other misguided women straight. And so he would respond. Well, Mrs. Holman, guess what she does? She writes right back. And he prints her letter again. And then he writes right back. And this goes on for 15 or 20 years. And she is quoting books by Duke theology school professors in the 1890s. Now, how did a woman in Fayetteville have access to that kind of a library? I do not know. I interviewed some of her grandchildren, but they didn't really know very much about her. But it was really fascinating that she got onto this cause, and Lipscomb was opposed to it. He was very much opposed to this, and so this gets covered in the Gospel Advocate as well. But she really can draw enthusiasm for what she is talking about. And so she and her stalwart group of women who are really mobilized will start working on the members of the General Assembly. They are absolutely determined that we are going to go dry. And so they get some legislation passed. And so this, of course, really kind of pits the cities, once again, Nashville and Memphis, against rural Tennessee. And so you see the mayors of Memphis and Nashville not really wanting this, because this is tax dollars we're talking about stopping, and the rural areas want some form of prohibition. So along the way here, until we get to full-fledged dryness here in Tennessee, till we go completely dry, you're going to see the legislature passing these smaller little acts to limit access to alcohol. Now, it became a political issue, and enter the stage this man. This is Edward Ward Carmack. I would imagine most of you have heard of this man. Visitors to our city have no idea who he is. He stands there overlooking the Legislative Plaza. You cannot really see from the street there since the roads are closed. Around the Capitol, you can't really see the statue of Andrew Jackson because it is on a closed state road where now the legislators are crossing now that they've moved. Some of them have moved to the Cordell Hall building. You can't see the statue of Andrew Johnson, the grave of the Pope. So you look at this one, it's the most prominent statue down there, and you say, wow, this must be the most important man in Tennessee. And the answer to that is no, not really. But, you know, the women were responsible for getting him this grand place of honor. So who was Edward Ward Carmack? He was born in Sumner County. He grew up in Columbia. His father died at an early age. He worked for the newspaper in Columbia. He moved on to Memphis and worked for the newspaper there. He got elected to Congress, and he got appointed eventually to the U.S. Senate. And so, but keep in mind that the senators were not elected by the people. The General Assembly picked our U.S. senators. So he was appointed to the Senate, and he really thought he liked being in the Senate, but the legislature decided to relieve him of his duties when his term ended, and so he is no longer a senator, so he runs in the Democratic primary for governor of Tennessee. And he carries on a very vicious and very strong campaign against Malcolm Patterson. And because Patterson is what we would call a wet, he supported local option. He supported the counties or the cities deciding if they want to drink or not. Because Malcolm Patterson supported he was against prohibition, then of course Senator Carmack going to support prohibition. So he had jumped on this bandwagon fairly late. He hadn't always been a prohibitionist, but he jumped on the bandwagon. So of course the women of the Women's Christian Temperance Union really worked in the Democratic primary for him to win the nomination for governor. But he was unsuccessful. Governor Patterson won. He went on to defeat the Republican. And so now Senator Carmack needs a job. He has newspaper experience in Memphis, so Luke Lee very eagerly hires him to be the editor of the Nashville American Tennessean. Luke Lee had bought the American, and he creates the Tennessean, and so Luke Lee hires him in 1908 to be the editor of his paper. And of course, Senator Carmack just has a field day in this position. Now, he goes after Governor Carmack, and he goes after Governor Carmack's political allies, Nashvillians. He goes after them as well on the front page of the Tennessean, day after day after day. Now, Senator Carmack, he is a very controversial figure. But until fairly recently, we just associated him completely with prohibition. But he actually had written and spoken, given some speeches while he was in Washington in Carmack. He had given some fairly racist speeches while he was a member of the House of Representatives. He gave this pledge to the South, and this is on the back side of that monument. Several professors at TSU have from time to time tried to get this removed and get Senator Carmack moved, but he is still there. And he goes on to talk about the South. To that land, every drop of my blood, every fiber of my being, every pulsation of my heart is consecrated forever. I was born of her womb. I was nurtured at her breast, and when my last hour shall come, I pray God that I may be pillowed upon her bosom and rocked to sleep within her tender and encircling arms. He was a Southerner through and through, and he went to his grave in that fashion. So he has jumped on the bandwagon of Prohibition. He is going to run for office. He thought he could win, but he absolutely couldn't pull it off. He was defeated and went to work for Luke Lee in the newspaper. And he really had a lot to say. Now, some of you do remember Hugh Walker, who wrote for the Tennessean. He and Louise Davis both had the luxury of writing history articles, long feature articles for the Tennessean in the 50s and 60s. And now Carmack kicked down one flight of stairs, came up another. He became the editor-in-chief editorial voice of Luke Lee's young, brash morning paper, the Nashville Tennessean. So he goes after the governor's allies as to every degree that he can go after Duncan Cooper and his son, Robin Cooper. And these are men who are not exactly political animals. They're friends of the governor. They're political supporters of Governor Patterson. But they are incredibly thin-skinned. And you know, anybody who's going to be in politics has got to have the skin of a crocodile in order to withstand the criticism that comes toward them. And so, needless to say, once Senator Carmack, now Editor Carmack, sees that he can push that little button, he certainly does, in fact, begin pushing it. And so what you see here is Carmack is saying all manner of outrageous things about Cooper and his political motives and everything else. And Duncan Cooper and his son are really threatening Carmack. I mean, they're saying, don't you write another one. Well, that just kind of puts fuel on the fire. So he writes another one. So finally things come to a cinematic moment on the streets of Nashville. The Coopers are coming after Senator Carmack. Senator Carmack is, imagine where the War Memorial is, and they're coming down Union Street. There's a hole in the ground there where they've just excavated for the Hermitage Hotel, which will be finished in another year or two, in 1908. They come down the sidewalk, and here comes Senator Editor Carmack, and they run into each other. They are coming to look for him. And so there is one woman who witnesses this whole event, but she is so totally in befuddlement that she cannot really say much about what she actually saw happen, because words are spoken, guns are drawn. All of these people were armed. I sure hope y'all aren't. It kind of makes me nervous here. All these people were armed. This is not a new thing today. All of these people are armed, and so suddenly shots are fired. Senator Carmack lays on the ground. He bleeds to death. He is shot. He is mortally wounded. Duncan Cooper is not hurt. His son Robin seems to have a bullet in his leg. He goes to the hospital. But of course, you know how the women are going to react to this. The WCTU are going to say he was assassinated. This is a political assassination. And so Selena Holman rallies her women all over the state of Tennessee to come to Nashville. And in the spring of 1909, this is a full 9 years before national prohibition, these women convinced the General Assembly for Tennessee to go completely dry. And so Tennessee, and there was a handful of other states. We weren't the only state to go dry, but Tennessee goes completely dry well before the 18th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified. And we're going to have ourselves a great big trial here in Nashville. Can you imagine the jury for any trial here going out and posing at Centennial Park today? I can't imagine this, but there was lots and lots of publicity about this trial. Well, they were convicted of some of the charges, and they are sentenced. And this is where it does help to have friends in high places. They were sentenced, and Governor Patterson pardoned them. So you can imagine how this was received at the Tennessean. There was a deal, this was unfair, they were the ones that killed this noble man. There was all sorts of fallout from this, and the big fallout really was to Patterson's career, because the Coopers were freed, but he ends up losing in the next election to, that would have been 1910, to a Republican, Ben Hooper, who was from East Tennessee. He loses, Governor Patterson loses to Ben Hooper, and he will ultimately, Governor Patterson has kind of an interesting story himself in that he ultimately became a prohibitionist himself. But it was the trial of the century here. Yes, Mike?
The headline there says the decision was reversed by judges, the case against Cooper. How does that
the judges did, some judges, they were trying to appeal it up, but it is my understanding, and there's a nice little book about this that Jim Somerville, who now lives in Dixon, wrote, but there's a nice little book about this whole thing with all the details in it. And the judges were not happy necessarily with the verdict, but they were pardoned by Governor Patterson. He did, in fact, pardon them. And so there was a lot of just what's going on here, and people are saying this, that, and the other about this. It was in the news for a long time. So we go dry, and Senator Carmack, the martyr, the women raise the money across the state and have this statue put on the grounds of the Capitol there right facing Charlotte Avenue. Now, some of you remember Charlotte Avenue before TPAC was built, when the Andrew Jackson Hotel was over there, and you remember that that street where the Legislative Plaza is in front of the War Memorial Auditorium was an open street. Well, the War Memorial Auditorium is built in the 20s, a memorial to the men from Tennessee who died in World War I. And then in the late 70s, I guess, the Legislative Plaza was built, early 80s. They built TPAC, they built the Legislative Plaza. All of those things kind of came together at the same time. And the legislative offices are underneath that plaza. So now the legislators have nicer new offices, but they're going to have to cross the street to get into the Capitol. Just a little piece of Capitol trivia here. Tennessee has the oldest working Capitol in the United States. You go to Connecticut and they have their old Capitol as a museum, but that's not where their legislature meets. And ours is the oldest working Capitol in the United States. So the legislators insist that a tunnel be created under Charlotte Avenue so that they will not have to walk across the street there. And they build this tunnel, and you know, this is like the late 70s, early 80s, and you know, Prohibition is a dead dog to beat now, you know, it's just gone. And so a legislator from a little county southeast of here, Franklin County, Moore County, those counties down in there, he decides to have a little mischief. So he introduces a little amendment to a bill that had nothing to do with this statue, that they're going to name this tunnel they're building under there the Motlow Tunnel. Now, you all know who the Montlows are, the Jack Daniel's Distillery. So here in Tennessee, we've got our ardent prohibitionists standing in grand style atop the Montlow Tunnel. And I just am so amused about that because they had to raise a little money to put him up on this pedestal here. But look at him when you go down there, and sometimes get out and walk around and read the Pledge to the South, which is there on the backside of his marker. But it's really quite a grand spectacle to go down there and see him standing in front of our beautiful state capitol. So as I said, the political fallout was that a Republican got elected. Yes?
Is it true that back then, since he was editor of the Tennessean, that people said he died for freedom of the press?
Well, that may be true. Now, you know, I have never heard that, but it's logical to me because the Coopers were really criticizing what he was writing about them. And so, you know, they were threatening him. They really weren't, as far as I can tell, they weren't threatening Luke Lee at all. And, but they were really threatening him. And so all these people were carrying guns. That's not a new thing. So they were armed and ready to use them if necessary. So, but that book that Jim Somerville wrote really is quite an excellent amount of research in the whole subject. He goes into great detail about who the jury was and the trial and all of that. It's really quite an interesting book. And so Ben Hooper becomes governor, and he, along with Austin Peay, who will become governor in the 20s, are probably Tennessee's two most progressive governors of this time period. So he introduces a lot of progressive reforms for Tennessee, but even though he got elected governor, the Democrats solidly control the legislature, and he has a really frustrating time. Even though he served 2 terms as governor, he has a frustrating time getting the legislature to support any of his worthwhile bills. And it's an interesting thing. This happened in the state Democratic Party quite regularly. The Democrats controlled politics after the Civil War, but every 20 or 30 years they would have such a big family feud that a Republican would get elected. And we saw a big fight over the convict lease system in Tennessee in the 80s. Here is another one over alcohol, and yet the Republicans were never able to gain control of the 2 houses of the General Assembly and the governor's office at the same time until very recently here. So Ben Hooper, he was a dry, now I emphasize that, and then we elect another dry named Tom Rye. So Prohibition is with us here for a good long while along the way, this noble idea. Now, from 1910 to 1920, in addition to the Great War kind of overshadowing everything that took place in that decade, you have 2 really major disasters here in Nashville. We had this magnificent reservoir on 8th Avenue. It had been on the top of a hill where the Union Army had a camp. It was quite a lovely structure up there. It was kind of a park in those days, although you certainly couldn't take a dip in it, but the water was completely open and the park was open and you could walk around up there. But they built this reservoir, and so the water is going down. Well, there'd been some engineers saying, you know, that thing looks like it's got a crack in it. I mean, it looks like, you know, there's something going on up there. And then, amazingly, or not a surprise, take it either way, it burst, it broke. And it was quite a disaster. A chunk of the wall just came out. And it flooded that whole neighborhood there. I mean, people were floating, literally floating out on their mattresses. It was the biggest mess you have ever seen. And Nashville, of course, this really jeopardizes our water system too. So we've had this big disaster, and that makes the national news because it destroys houses and is a catastrophe. And then we're going to have, on the heels of this one, we're going to have yet another one with a big fire in East Nashville. And a large amount of East Nashville burned in this fire. Some of you will remember there used to be a convent here in town, not over in East Nashville because it burned in the fire, but one of the orders that was here in town were the Little Sisters of the Poor. And they did a lot of charitable work, and they had a really lovely convent over there in East Nashville, and it was completely gutted by the fire. Lots and lots of people lost everything they owned. Churches were damaged, and East Nashville had to be pretty much rebuilt. So some of those very elegant houses that you see if you walk on Russell Street, the older houses, they were built really right after this fire. But it was quite deadly and quite another one of these things. How are we going to address this problem here? What kind of social services can we provide to help the victims of this fire? And the fire takes place, this window of, we've got to look kind of a little bit at the chronology, because you remember that Europe goes to war in what is known as the Great War, World War I, in 1914, in the summer of 1914, when the Germans invaded Belgium heading to France. World War I begins. Our president at this time is Woodrow Wilson, and he says he's going to keep the United States out of war, which he actually, in fact, does. Now, the United States in 1914 was in a little war of our own that has really gotten eclipsed by World War I, in that we had troops in Mexico chasing the bandit Pancho Villa. And the problem was that our president, Woodrow Wilson, he was a man who had, the term I guess would be certitude. He felt very strongly that he was right, that he was God's messenger. He felt that God appointed him and wanted him to be president. And so when Mexico elected a president that did not meet Woodrow Wilson's standards, Woodrow Wilson sent troops to Veracruz, and there was some fighting going on in Veracruz. When our troops get there, they don't get off the boat to go fight or overthrow the government, but they get off the boat to eat and drink, and then they're, again, people with guns, and so eventually some Mexican citizens got shot during this little melee. And so President Wilson says, I will not support a nation, a regime of butchers, and we are fighting Mexico, chasing Pancho Villa. Pancho Villa actually invaded New Mexico. Our borders have been crossed. He burned a town in New Mexico. We chased and chased. General Pershing was down there chasing him with the army, and he had the support of the local people. So we're going to have to get ourselves disengaged from this experience in Mexico, but President Wilson really believes that he can keep us out of this war. And we can be neutral. Keep in mind that we've got a substantial population of Germans, not just in the United States, but right here in Nashville. And so, there is support for the German side here to some degree in the United States. Now, in the newspaper that summer, the big news in Nashville was not anything going on in Europe. The big news was that we were really, more than anything else, worried about our cotton crop. because the cotton crop, which had a huge operation in Memphis, the cotton exchange was a source of a tremendous amount of revenue in lots of different parts of the state, even as far east as Nashville. And we were concerned that there wasn't going to be enough rain for the cotton crop. And then after Europe goes to war, then we get concerned that we're not going to have a market for our cotton crop. So the newspapers, after the assassination of the Archduke in late June, they cover that story for a day or two, but then there's this watching and waiting to see what's going to happen. Where is the other shoe going to fall? Is Europe going to go to war or not? And you know, well, there are many, many interesting parts of this story. The United States, as we watch and wait and see the Archduke and his wife being killed right there before the camera's eyes as they are getting ready to get into an open coach, we wonder what we need to do, but we are confident that our President, Woodrow Wilson, can, in fact, keep us out of this war. And that is what he is going to really try to do when the war starts. Now, even before the war starting, the tension in Europe, the anticipation of this war is so palpable that it is affecting the New York Stock Exchange. And so this is really a fascinating thing because the New York Stock Exchange ultimately decides to close. The board of directors decide to close. They're afraid they're going to have a run, and they are terrified of that. So by this time, J.P. Morgan, who had kind of had his hand in a really strong control, has died. And so the others are very nervous about what's going to happen. So the New York Stock Exchange closes here, can you believe this, for several months. Now that, of course, affects Nashville because Nashville is a banking and business community. And so now we've got this cotton coming ready to go to market. We don't have foreign markets for our cotton crop. So the cotton farmers come up with a plan that citizens, since we don't have a market and we've got all these bales of cotton, citizens will buy a bale of cotton. Now that doesn't mean you're going to drive to Memphis and put it on the top of your car and bring it back to Nashville. What that means is it's going to be kept in a warehouse, but you're going to provide the cash, which really amounts to a sort of a loan. You're loaning the money to them for a bale of cotton so that the farmers won't be destitute and won't go under here. So this Buy a Bale campaign really takes off. It's on the front page of the newspapers. Support the South, help the South, buy a bale of cotton. And people in Nashville did this. The governor did it. Everyone was buying a bale of cotton here to support this. Now, the temperance movement has kind of gotten what they wanted, and they're kind of going to start fading now. At this point, you're going to see woman suffrage coming up and rising up. And so we don't have much activity on woman suffrage here in Nashville until about 1910, 11, 12. There'd been a suffrage association here, but it had been too controversial to last. The Women's Christian Temperance Union had a national convention in Nashville, and Selena Holman, why is that running? Gosh. I'm not Dutching this thing. I'm not. Gosh, I don't know what that's all about. Maybe it says, Carole, hurry up, we're tired. I don't know. That may be what the message is. So the Suffrage Association, the Temperance Association, the National WCTU had a convention in Nashville at, of course, the Ryman Auditorium. And so Selena Holman really goes to the press and says, I want to make it clear that here in Tennessee, we do not support woman suffrage as an organization because it was still looked upon as outside of the realm of what proper women should be up to trying to get the right to vote. But you have a dedicated core of women here in Nashville and across the state that really have come to believe that they can help make this country better and make the cities and the schools and the counties and the states all better if they can have the right to vote. It is still controversial. And even when we get the right to vote in 1920, even then, at the peak of the Suffrage Association in Tennessee, the membership of the Tennessee Equal Suffrage League was just a fraction of what the WCTU was at its heyday. It was always a small group. But the group is still actually quite diverse because the name that everybody knows is Ann Dallas Dudley. She is sort of the face of this movement, but she herself would have told you she was one of a team of women. And so we're working really hard this year up to the anniversary next year to try to get these other women's stories out there, because you have Catherine Kinney, who's got a wealthy husband. His first wife had died, and he has married Ann. She is from the Dallas family, a very prominent family. She has two beautiful children. She herself is beautiful, and she wants the right to vote. Joining her, an unlikely kind of pair, she was a member of the Christ Episcopal Church, is Catherine Kinney, who is an Irish Catholic. She had come to Nashville around the turn of the century with her husband, who had gotten the first Coca-Cola bottling company franchise in Nashville, which was really kind of a license to make money. So consequently, you know, she is welcomed into the suffrage society. You've got Kate Birch Warner, who is another highly respected society woman. The Warners owned a lot of different things in town. Her husband was Leslie Warner. If you go down to Christ Episcopal Church, there is a very beautiful stained glass window there that is dedicated to the memory of her three children. At different times, she and her husband had three children, and at different times ranging from when one was 8 or 9 years old to one was a toddler and one was a little infant, these children all died of different epidemics and things that happened to these kids. And so they had no children, and she has become very interested in this suffrage movement. And then you have a whole host of other women who are interested. So to give the Tennessee women a little boost, the National Association has its national convention here at the Ryman Auditorium, and there are lots and lots of women who come to this and enjoy it, but it's going to take 6 more years of work before they're going to really get the momentum going to get women the right to vote, to win the fight. Meanwhile, President Wilson wins a very, very narrow re-election. It was in doubt for several days, waiting on the electoral vote to come in from Washington. He wins the election in 1916. He still has run and continues to say, I kept the nation out of war, vote for me. I kept the nation out of war. And then when 1917 comes, it looks like it's going to be harder and harder to keep us out of the war. The Germans announced they are resuming submarine warfare. That's a whole nother longer story, but after the German torpedo from a subway attacked the Lusitania, on which we had several Americans on it, a lot of Americans on it, and they were killed. The Germans agreed to not use their submarines anymore as a way to keep the United States out of the war. And so for the Germans, of course, that's like fighting with your dominant hand tied behind your back. So they announced in 1917 they're going to resume submarine warfare. And immediately everything everybody was doing in Tennessee is focused on the war effort. Lots and lots of Tennesseans enlist. We are really ready to send our men off to the war. We're going to help our allies, the British and the French, fight the Kaiser. and we are fighting for civilization, and Luke Lee himself will re-enlist. He was too old to be in the Army by the draft, so he became a colonel in the United States Army. He gives land out in Belmead for a training camp here. We have 2 camps here in town, one there where the golf course is. This monument is right there on one of the trails not too far from the entrance to Warner Park at Belmead Boulevard. And there are lots of pictures of the tents out there on the training ground. And there was another one over at Vanderbilt, but we're having soldiers trained here. And he will, in fact, go to Europe and will be involved in a plot, if you will, to try to capture the Kaiser. They were not successful, but they tried. Now, meanwhile, the women in town are really going to go to work supporting this too. It turns out that 2 Nashville women have been in Europe when Germany invaded Belgium and then came to Paris, and they had seen some of this. They had actually gone to some of the hospitals, and these women, the sisters, the McHenry sisters, come back and say, we need to do our part. So these women's organizations really mobilize through the YWCA and the Centennial Club, and they start doing all sorts of things. Among them, they adopt, women's organizations all over town will adopt a French orphan. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to take care of that child, but they're going to finance the care of a child in France whose parents have both been killed in the Great War. So that's a very popular thing for women to get involved in. It's hard to imagine the YWCA people wearing military uniforms, but indeed they did. And so they are really trying to support the effort in every way that they can. The Centennial Club, left over from the Centennial Exposition, now has this lovely house, a building, which is no more, but it is behind the federal courthouse on 8th. It was behind the federal courthouse on 8th Avenue, where all of that development is, the spill-off from the Music City Center. So we've got women really supporting the war effort in a lot of different ways, largely, but not exclusively, through the work of the Red Cross. Will Allen Drumgoole, who is a reporter, she enlists in the women's activities in the war, and she goes over to Europe to cover it as a reporter. Mrs. Alf Adams here has that many sons. Bless her heart, it's what I've got to say. 7 sons, and they all in one form or another were in uniform. Now, can you imagine just seeing the postman on the street would scare you to death? And so she was very lucky, but some were not so lucky. And the casualty rate of the casualties from World War I in Nashville and in Tennessee and in the United States were a tiny, tiny fraction of how many were killed in World War II, primarily because we were in World War II from December 8th, 1941 till August 1945. We were there for that many years, whereas here we enter the war in April. It's September, October before our troops get over there. This is 1917, and the war ends a year after our soldiers really get over to Europe. So we don't lose nearly as many men as you might think. Their names are all on the wall of the War Memorial Auditorium. When the soldiers come home, they come home on the train. They have great celebrations in every town from Knoxville, from Bristol actually, all the way here as the boys get off the train as heroes. It's quite a triumphant thing that goes on. They are celebrating, and yet there are the losses. And here is Mrs. Buford, whose son was a pilot, among other things, and he had been shot down and killed. And then she only lived until 19. She died in what killed far more Nashvillians and Tennesseans, the Spanish flu. So the war, there were, you know, if it's your son, it's a terrible thing, but the Spanish flu killed a lot of people here in town. In the last months of the war, we have another catastrophe, another disaster. It is the Dutchman's Curve train collision with two trains loaded with people. The one coming from the west coming into town was it was full of workers going to the DuPont gunpowder factory that has just opened in 1918, and it's manufacturing the smokeless gunpowder. So you've got all of these workers on this train, and it was a signal era, and the trains were not supposed to be on that track at the same time. There's also a lovely book about that called The Day the Whistle Cried, and it shows a lot of the human portraits of the people who got killed and the families who lost their loved ones in that big train wreck. So this too makes the national news. This is just a colossal disaster for us. And there used to be, I don't think I know anybody now who really remembers that, but in the 70s and 80s, there were still people who remember going over there that day, and some of you may have heard your parents or grandparents talking about going over there that day, and there were those trains, literally, it looked like one was on top of the other. So it was quite the catastrophe to hit Nashville when it took place. So we have this smokeless gunpowder plant. One of our own Davidson County men, Admiral, excuse me, he's in the Navy. You Navy people will never forgive me for calling him a colonel. He is the one who is responsible for getting our boys over there and back, and he has a statue, as you see, downtown, and most people don't remember who he was. But we have a lot of activity supporting the war and the soldiers, and we want to honor those dead. So there's Colonel Lee and his little group of men, and they try to capture the Kaiser, but they are not successful. Now, we are just about 5 minutes away from being out of time here, and I want to be very respectful for your schedules and your time. But I do want to say the Spanish flu epidemic, which came through, it shocked everybody because it was no respecter of persons. And unlike other epidemics, the measles or the mumps that would come through, they would mostly hit the very young or the very old. But this seemed to take people at the prime of their life, and they would get sick. Now, the greatest geographic spot, I think, in Tennessee, the highest number of flu fatalities was in Old Hickory, because they have built more or less dormitories. The YWCA and the YMCA have built these dormitories over there for their workers to live in, and so you can imagine young men and young women living in close proximity to each other, how fast those germs can fly. And so, you know, there's a lot about that we really don't know, because I do know that the churches in town all voluntarily closed at the mayor's request. We closed all the schools, all the public theaters for a period of time. Just stay away from being around other people. And but you know, one of the stories about the death that we've never been able to document is that people in Old Hickory, the old-timers, so to speak, say that they remember that there was just, because they were so concerned about the contagious effect of more people getting the flu, there was just a sort of an open burial, a mass burial there until the families could get here and pick up the bodies of those who had been killed. We've never been able to document that, but we lost far more people here in Davidson County to the flu than we did really to the fighting in the war, and it spread through anywhere that had a population of people living together. So that was the last of these big catastrophes. Yes.
How many did die of the flu?
Well, that's a very good question. I bet I've got it in my notes. Since I'm going without my notes, I've probably got a lot of statistics here in my notes. So I will look here and see what I said to myself to remember to tell you all about this. Well, worldwide, there were 25 to 40 million people killed worldwide. It was a pandemic. It spread, we think it was brought into the United States from an army base in Kansas by soldiers. It then spread, I think, to Philadelphia. There's a great book about this by the same man that wrote the flood book, Rising Tide. There's a book about this epidemic, and it is chilling to the deaths that occurred and how rapidly it spread across the country. But it was the most severe thing we had ever seen in terms of an epidemic in Nashville. And, you know, here in Nashville, we had 3 big waves of this flu epidemic, one in the spring of 1918, one later that year in the fall, and then another one in the early 1919. So just when you think it's getting over, it comes back again. And Nashville's population had swollen because of the war workers, and so you've got people getting sick. Now, I found the statistics. While I'm rattling on, I usually can't talk and find things at the same time. Okay, 40,000 cases of the Spanish flu were recorded in Nashville and Davidson County in a 6-week period in 1918. 1 out of 4 people in our population got the Spanish flu, and 1 in 300 died. And the only thing in medical infectious diseases history here that's ever come close was an 1873 cholera epidemic. But I cannot tell you the number of people who died, but I bet I'll be able to tell you next week. How about that? Yes?
My grandfather's brother died of that. He was a freshman at Vanderbilt. I didn't know his name.
Oh, really?
So he would have been, I don't know if he lived, because we were originally from Nashville, I lived in Nashville then. I don't know if he was living at home or living in the dorm, one of the rooms.
But he could have caught the germs.
He died.
Mike?
That book is called The Great Influenza.
The Great Influenza.
One of the things he says is nothing especially Spanish about the flu.
No, nothing Spanish. No, it was not. It was originated from military camps. It spread, and they just called it, and we still call it the Spanish flu, but there was nothing Spanish about it whatsoever. No, they were. We can't blame them. We can't blame them for anything, because they were not. They did not participate, and so yes, there's nothing Spanish. But I highly recommend that book because it tells you about the crisis in Philadelphia and how it just spread all over the country, but nothing about this mass grave in Old Hickory that I'm still very curious if that actually happened or not. We've never been able to document that, but people talked about it.
Where is that mansion?
That mansion at the time was, I believe they had moved to the West End. It was across from Vanderbilt, and I think that's the one that immortalized Huell Hauser. If you all remember Huell Hauser on Channel 4 News, they were tearing it down to put to put a fried chicken place in there, and he went and did a story out in front of it. Now, this was after I came to town, so this had to be the 70s, trying to save this house. But there were beautiful houses all along West End Avenue, and if you go down there on that little leg of Broadway, I guess it is, before you get to that point where 21st and those streets kind of collide there, you'll see 2 or 3 of those houses, but by and large, all of these magnificent homes along the West End are gone. And the Governor's Mansion, I will say this, the Governor's Mansion was on 8th Avenue, right there where the War Memorial Auditorium was, and then it moved to West End, a nicer house, and then it moved again in the 30s, I think, to Curtiswood Lane. And if you saw any of the country music thing last night, you heard my friend Margaret Ann again last night, and her friend Sarah Cannon, who bridged the society bridge between country music and society here in Nashville. So on that note, we're going to stop. Next week will be our finale. I will start with women getting the right to vote, and I will probably end with the creation of metropolitan government. Those are two good stories with World War II, and the Civil Rights Movement in there as well. So I greatly appreciate your attention, and email me any questions you have. Did you all get the bibliography? Yes. And I greatly appreciate your attention. This is the most attentive audience I ever speak to. Thank you for coming.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.edu.